My name is Megan Walsh. I'm 28 years old, and a few nights ago, my own mother decided, without asking, that my life could be rearranged to suit my brother. She placed both hands on my desk and physically shoved it away from the wall so he could reposition his camera setup. No raised voice, no discussion, just a flat statement, like paperwork already approved. This room is his studio now. You can work from the basement. My brother, Caleb, stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, watching my monitors flicker off one by one as if he were enjoying the performance. He smirked and said, "You'll be fine down there, right? Fewer distractions." He said it lightly, like a joke, but he meant it. That room wasn't just a spare bedroom. It was my office, the place I had slowly built into a real workspace so I could do my remote design job, take freelance clients, and pay the bills that kept that house running. I looked at him, then at my mother, Diane, and all I said was, "Okay." No arguing, no shouting, no tears. I unplugged my laptop, grabbed my external drive, and picked up what I could carry in one trip. I walked straight past them and down the stairs, just like they expected. What they didn't know was that when I said okay, what I actually meant was I'm finished. That same night, I moved out without saying a word. I didn't just change where my desk was, I changed everything. By morning, the calls started. Then the messages. "Please answer. We can't do this without you. Just come home and we'll talk." Suddenly, I was the only person on Earth who knew how to keep their lives from collapsing. If you've ever wondered what really happens when the person everyone relies on finally walks away, stay with me, because the way they begged me to come back forced me to rethink how much I had allowed myself to be used. Growing up, I always sensed my family wasn't exactly balanced, but it didn't fully hit me until money entered the picture. I was the responsible one, the kid who stayed up late finishing assignments, organized everything by color, and cared about doing well. Caleb, my younger brother, was labeled creative and sensitive, which somehow meant expectations didn't apply to him the same way. When I earned a scholarship to a respected design program, my mom hugged me briefly in the kitchen and said, "That's nice, honey. You've always been dependable." When Caleb barely passed an online course he hardly participated in, she ordered a custom cake, took photos, and posted about it online like he'd achieved something extraordinary. That's when I learned not to expect applause for doing things right. After college, moving back home to Brooklyn felt like the only logical choice. Manhattan rent was laughable, $3,000 for a glorified closet. I told myself it would be temporary, just until I built savings from my UX job and side work. Instead, I quietly became the household's backup plan. It started harmless. My mom's paycheck came up short one month, so I covered the electric bill. Then the internet plan got upgraded so Caleb could stream without lag, and somehow it ended up on my credit card. Then came the shared subscriptions: Netflix, Spotify, phone plans, extra groceries for family nights that mostly meant takeout. I kept telling myself, I make more. This is what adults do. But every auto-renew charge felt like a small twist in my chest. When Caleb announced he wanted to be a content creator, my mom said it with complete seriousness, not as an idea, as a calling. "He just needs encouragement," she said. "He has real potential." Encouragement turned into a $600 online creator course he never completed. It turned into ring lights, tripods, and accessories ordered with my account. It meant me resetting the router at 2 in the morning when his late-night test streams dropped connection. Meanwhile, my real job, the one paying for all of this, ran quietly in the background. I transformed the small upstairs room into a professional office because no one else wanted it. I spent my own savings on a solid desk, a proper chair, a second monitor, a drawing tablet, and decent lighting so I didn't look exhausted on client calls. I taped wireframes to the walls, built processes, built a career. That room was the difference between surviving and actually moving forward. But whenever my mom mentioned it, she'd say, "Megan's lucky she gets to work from home." Lucky. as if none of it took effort. At the same time, she talked about Caleb like he was one viral post away from changing our lives. She never asked how many hours I spent refining interfaces or fixing problems other people ignored. She only noticed when a bill was due, and somehow it was already paid. I kept a private list in my phone: rent contributions, utility payments, subscriptions I forgot were mine because everyone used them, groceries, takeout, ride shares for my mom, ride shares for Caleb when he claimed he had interviews he never attended. The total kept climbing. My mom called it family helping family. I started thinking of it as quietly bleeding money so everyone else could stay comfortable. The worst part? They genuinely believed they were the ones struggling. Caleb complained about how hard it was to make it, sitting in a room I paid to heat while shopping for sneakers. My mom talked about rising costs while half her expenses sat under my name. I knew, deep down, that I had helped create this. I said yes too often. I fixed things before they broke. I softened every consequence. And because I always did, they assumed I always would. That was the unspoken rule. Megan will handle it. Megan will pay for it. Megan will fix it. I just never imagined they'd push me out of the very space that made all of that possible. The night my mom told me to take the basement, something inside me finally stopped making excuses and asked the one question I had avoided for years. What would actually happen if I didn't fix it this time? That question followed me everywhere, into the shower, into my dreams, into the quiet moments between meetings when my camera was off and my smile dropped. That night, lying in bed with my laptop open and my design files untouched, I opened Zillow instead. I typed Queens Studio Max Price. I told myself I was just browsing. The numbers still made my stomach tighten, but for the first time, they didn't feel impossible. I had savings, not a lot, but enough. I scrolled past dark, depressing listings until one caught my eye. It was a small studio tucked into a quiet Queens block. One large window faced the street, and there was just enough wall space for a desk, a few shelves, and not much else. The listing photos showed sunlight spilling across hardwood floors and a narrow kitchen with clean white cabinets. Nothing luxurious, but as I scrolled through the pictures, my mind was already arranging the room. I could see exactly where my monitor would sit, where I'd tape mock-ups to the wall, where I'd put a plant and convince myself I'd remember to water it. I checked the rent again, then again, $2,200 a month. High, but not impossible. When I added up my income and subtracted everything I would no longer be covering for my family, I stared at the running total in my Notes app, the same one that tracked how much I'd poured into that house. In a single year, I'd already spent the equivalent of several months of that studio and had nothing to show for it that actually belonged to me. The next morning, I told my mom I had an early meeting with a client in Queens. That wasn't exactly a lie. Someone there was about to decide my future. On the train, my heart hammered as I clutched a folder with my pay stubs and ID. When the landlord, an older woman with sharp eyes and a calm, no-nonsense tone, opened the door, I knew instantly this wasn't a scam. The apartment was even smaller than the photos suggested, but it was clean, quiet, and, most importantly, it could be mine. We sat at the tiny counter that doubled as a dining table while she walked me through the lease. She asked, "You work from home?" "Yes," I said. "UX design. I just need reliable internet and space for a desk." She nodded like that explained everything. No parties, no loud music, no drama. I nearly laughed. That was exactly what I was trying to escape. When she slid the lease toward me, my hand hesitated. Every fear hit at once. What if work slows down? What if this is a mistake? What if your family never forgives you? Then one thought cut through the noise. They already treat you like you owe them everything, and they still didn't hesitate to push you aside. I signed. I transferred the first month rent and the security deposit. $6,600 gone in a single click. It stung, but it felt clean. This wasn't money vanishing into endless bills and excuses. This was something solid, something mine. On the ride back to Brooklyn, I kept reaching into my pocket, touching the new key, a small square of metal that meant I finally had an exit. When I walked through the door, Caleb was on the couch yelling into his headset at a game. Empty takeout containers still sat on the coffee table from the night before. My mom stood at the kitchen counter, scrolling on her phone, muttering about grocery prices. No one asked how my meeting went, no one noticed anything different. That actually made the next part easier. I started with small changes. That evening, when they asked what we should order for dinner, I said I'd already eaten. The next day, when my mom texted asking me to add extra items to the grocery order, I replied, "I can't cover more this week. I'm watching my budget." It was the first time I'd said no in years. There was a long pause, then a thumbs up emoji. Later that week, the Wi-Fi dropped during Caleb's stream. He stomped upstairs and knocked on the door of what was technically still my office. "Hey, Megan, can you reset the router? It's doing that thing again." I glanced at my screen, where I was testing a prototype against a deadline. "I can't right now. You'll have to handle it." He stood there, stunned, like he'd never heard that answer from me before. After a moment, he muttered something and walked away. Nothing exploded. The world kept spinning. A few nights later, my mom mentioned needing an Uber for an early shift because she didn't want to deal with the subway. "I can't put it on my account this time. Maybe ask Caleb or take the train." She stared at me like I'd suddenly switched languages. "Are you okay? You always help." "I'm just trying to be smarter with my money." I forced a casual smile. Inside, it felt like tearing up an old contract. Each no made the next one easier. Quietly, I started moving my life out of that house. First went my external hard drive with all my client work. Then my sketchbooks, my favorite pens, a stack of clothes that fit into a duffel bag. I told them I was decluttering, using a storage unit, leaving things with a friend. None of it was technically untrue. The storage unit just happened to be my new apartment. After my last meeting each day, I stopped leaving my laptop on the desk and slipped it into my backpack instead. One weekend, I removed my second monitor, saying it was glitching and needed to be checked. Slowly, my office stopped feeling like mine altogether. They were too busy focusing on Caleb's next content idea and my mom's overtime shifts to notice the shelves growing emptier. At night, after they went to bed, I made quiet trips to Queens, carrying boxes down the stairs one load at a time so the old steps wouldn't creak. Every time I unlocked that studio door and stepped into the silence, my chest felt lighter. I'd set a box down, listen to the echo of my footsteps, and think, this is where I stopped fixing everything for everyone else. I hadn't told them I was leaving yet. I wanted everything in place first. If my mom could decide I no longer deserved the space that paid their bills in a single conversation, then I could decide, silently, that I was done paying for their lives. By the time they officially converted my old office into Caleb's studio, complete with a bargain ring light and sneaker boxes stacked in the corner, almost everything that mattered to me was already gone. They thought they were pushing out a desk. What they were really losing was the last bit of control they had, without even realizing it. Everything finally snapped a couple of weeks later. Most of my important things were already in Queens, but I was still sleeping in my childhood room, still pretending nothing had changed. One Saturday afternoon, I came home with a coffee and felt something was off as I passed the door to what used to be my office. The door was open, light spilled out. Caleb's voice filled the room as he talked to his phone, testing angles. I stepped inside and my eyes went straight to the empty spot where my ergonomic chair used to be. In its place was a cheap folding chair from the basement, wobbling as Caleb adjusted his tripod. My stomach dropped. "Where is my chair?" I asked. Caleb didn't even turn around. "Mom sold it," he said. "We needed the money for my mic." The words landed harder than I expected. I walked straight into the kitchen where my mom was rinsing dishes like it was any ordinary day. "Where is my chair?" I asked again. She didn't look up at first. "Oh, that," she said casually. I put it on Facebook Marketplace. We got $250 for it. Caleb needed a real microphone if he's going to take this seriously. We'll find you something else for the basement. That chair was a bit much, anyway. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. I just stood there staring at her. That chair wasn't some random piece of furniture you grab off the curb. I bought it with my bonus after my team launched a major feature. I'd spent weeks dealing with back pain, sitting on different models in a showroom, imagining what it would feel like to finally work like a real professional instead of hunched over a kitchen table. "You sold it," I said slowly, "without asking me." She shrugged, finally looking up, her face carrying that familiar mix of irritation and confusion, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Megan, it's just a chair," she said. "We share things in this house. We needed money, Caleb needed equipment. You can work sitting on anything. You're young. You'll be fine." Something inside me. The calls didn't slow down. If anything, they came in waves. I let most of them go to voicemail. I still read the texts. Curiosity dies hard. Mom bounced between guilt and anger. One message accused me of abandoning my family. The next apologized and begged me to call. Ryan complained, then demanded, then asked me to at least fix things so they could downgrade. Meanwhile, my life in Queens was boring in the best way. Quiet mornings, focused workdays, simple dinners, no one asking for my credit card at midnight. A few days later, Mom left a voicemail that sounded different, smaller. "The gas company says we're behind," she said. "I didn't realize how much was in your name. It's getting cold. I don't know what to do." That familiar pull hit my chest, but this time I didn't rush to fix it. New York handled it first. The temperature dropped fast. A couple nights later, my phone rang again, and something told me to answer. "The heat's out," Mom said quickly. "The furnace stopped working. They want at least $400 just to get it running. We don't have it." Old me would have already been opening my banking app. Instead, I took a breath. "Did you call the gas company to ask about a payment plan?" I asked. She hesitated. "No, you always handle that." "Exactly," I said. She snapped back, then cracked. "I'm not asking you to move back. I'm asking for help. We're freezing." Ryan shouted in the background. "Do you even care? This is serious." The guilt hook, the one that had always worked. "I'll help once, but not the way you expect." Silence. "I'll pay for the furnace repair so you don't freeze. After that, I'm off your bills, completely. We sit down and go through your finances together. Ryan gets a real job, and I stop being your emergency solution." More arguing. Then, finally, "Fine," Mom said. "Just fix the heat." I paid the repair myself and scheduled it. It still hurt watching the money leave, but this time it came with boundaries. The next evening, I went back for the first time. The house was warmer. The mood wasn't. We sat at the table with unopened bills and a blank spreadsheet. Income, expenses, reality. For the first time, Mom saw the numbers without me quietly filling the gaps. I listed everything. The rent I handed my mom every single month, down to the exact amount. The electric and gas bills I covered whenever her paycheck didn't stretch far enough. The family phone plan, Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, all the little subscriptions everyone used without thinking about who paid for them. Groceries, delivery orders, Caleb's $600 creator course, the ring lights, the tripods, the must-have accessories, ride shares for my mom when she didn't want to take the subway late at night, ride shares for Ryan when he claimed he had interviews or networking events he never followed through on. Next to each category, I wrote the yearly total. Then I drew a line at the bottom and added everything up. $18,600 and change. I stared at the number for a long moment. That was almost an entire year of rent in my new apartment. I grabbed a magnet and stuck the paper right on the fridge door, where it couldn't be ignored. My mom walked in just as I stepped back. "What is this?" she asked, reaching for it. I moved faster, flattening my palm to the page. I said, "You can read it, you just can't take it down." Caleb shuffled in behind her, barefoot and yawning like it was any normal Saturday. His eyes flicked from the moving truck outside to the paper on the fridge. My mom's face drained of color as she scanned the list. "This is exaggerated. You're making it sound worse than it was. Nobody asked you to do all this." I let out a quiet laugh. "You didn't have to ask. Every time you said, 'I'm a little short this month,' or 'Can you just put it on your card and I'll pay you back?' that was you asking. You just never followed through on the second part." Ryan frowned when he saw his name. "You didn't have to put my stuff on there. You're trying to embarrass me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm trying to be clear. You both keep telling yourselves we're struggling the same way. We're not." I set the pen down and looked at them. "This is the last month I will ever pay for this house." My mom opened her mouth like she had something sharp ready, but nothing came out. Caleb just stood there, angry and uncomfortable, which is honestly the first time I'd ever seen him feel anything besides entitlement. I loaded the final box into the truck and then went upstairs one last time to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything important. My old room looked strangely hollow. The bed frame and a few random things stayed behind on purpose. I wanted there to be empty space where my life used to be. When I carried my pillow downstairs, my mom stood by the door gripping the frame like she needed it to stay upright. "Megan, please," she said quietly, "just think about this. We need you here. We can't afford for you to walk away." I paused, my hand resting on the doorknob. "You should have thought about what you could and couldn't afford before you pushed me out of the room that paid for all of this. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because staying here is breaking me." She shook her head, eyes glossy. "You're being dramatic. You'll be back. You always come back." "Maybe, but if I do, it won't be as your paycheck." I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and climbed into the driver's seat of the U-Haul. As I pulled away from the curb, I caught them in the side mirror. My mom had her arms wrapped around her. Ryan kept glancing between the truck and the paper still hanging on the fridge, visible through the kitchen window. Guilt twisted in my chest like it always did. Then I pictured my new studio, the sunlight on the floor, the quiet, the key in my pocket, and I kept driving. That night, I unpacked what I could, made a cheap meal in my tiny kitchen, and sat on the floor surrounded by half-open boxes. My phone buzzed a few times, messages from friends, a bank alert for the truck rental. Nothing from my family. The silence felt strange, but it also felt like proof. I slept on a mattress on the floor, exhausted, but lighter than I'd felt in years. The next morning, my phone vibrated so hard it nearly slid off the nightstand. The lock screen was flooded with missed calls from my mom and Caleb. Dozens of notifications stacked on top of each other. For a split second, my old instincts kicked in. Something's wrong. Someone needs you. I unlocked the phone. Mom's first message was short. "Call me." Then, "You changed the passwords. We can't log into anything. The internet bill is due, and it's higher than I thought. Please fix this. We can't afford this without you. Please answer." Caleb's messages were less polite. "The Wi-Fi is out. Did you shut it off on purpose? This isn't funny. Mom is freaking out." My phone started ringing again, my mom's name flashing across the screen. It buzzed and buzzed, filling the quiet apartment. For years, every time that screen lit up with their crisis, I dropped everything. Meetings, plans, even my own sick days. Because if I didn't answer, everything would fall apart. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail. Then it rang again. I set the phone face down on the table, took a slow breath, and made myself a cup of coffee while it kept buzzing. They pushed me out of my own office like I was optional, like my work and my boundaries didn't matter. Less than 24 hours later, they were begging me back because they finally felt the cost of that choice. The calls didn't slow down after that morning. If anything, they came in waves. I let most of them go to voicemail. I still read the texts. Curiosity dies hard. Mom bounced between guilt and anger. One message accused me of abandoning my family. The next apologized and begged me to call. Caleb complained, then demanded, then asked me to at least fix things so they could downgrade. Life in Queens was boring in the best way. Quiet mornings, focused workdays, simple dinners, no one asking for my credit card at midnight. A few days later, Mom left a voicemail that sounded different, smaller. "The gas company says we're behind," she said. "I didn't realize how much was in your name. It's getting cold. I don't know what to do." That familiar pull hit my chest, but this time I didn't rush to fix it. New York handled it first. The temperature dropped fast. A couple nights later, my phone rang again, and something told me to answer. "The heat's out," Mom said quickly. "The furnace stopped working. They want at least $400 just to get it running. We don't have it." Old me would have already been opening my banking app. Instead, I took a breath. "Did you call the gas company to ask about a payment plan?" I asked. She hesitated. "No, you always handle that." "Exactly," I said. She snapped back, then cracked. "I'm not asking you to move back. I'm asking for help. We're freezing." Ryan shouted in the background, "Do you even care? This is serious." The guilt hook, the one that had always worked. "I'll help once, but not the way you expect." Silence. "I'll pay for the furnace repair so you don't freeze. After that, I'm off your bills, completely. We sit down and go through your finances together. Ryan gets a real job, and I stop being your emergency solution." More arguing. Then, finally, "Fine." A year after I moved out, something unexpected happened. Nothing dramatic, no emergency phone calls, no frantic messages. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that would have terrified me before. On a Sunday afternoon, Mom called. Not panicked, not rushed. When I answered, she sounded almost calm. "I made chili," she said. "Thought I'd see if you wanted to come by." No guilt, no pressure. When I walked into the house, it looked different. Not renovated, just lived in differently. Fewer packages by the door, no half-used gadgets collecting dust. The thermostat was lower, the lights were off in empty rooms. Ryan was at the table, filling out paperwork. "He's out of town," he said, not looking up. "He got a warehouse promotion." I nodded. "Congrats." Dinner was simple. Conversation stayed surface level at first. Weather, work, a neighbor's dog. Then, Mom surprised me. "I didn't realize how much you were carrying," she said quietly, staring at her plate. "Not until you stopped." I didn't respond right away. I'd imagined this moment 100 times. It felt different when it actually happened. "I thought helping meant being a good mother," she continued. "Turns out I was teaching you to disappear." That one landed. Ryan cleared his throat. "I used to think you were just lucky," he said. "Like money just worked out for you. I didn't get that you were stressed all the time because of us." He paused. "I'm sorry." It wasn't perfect, it wasn't poetic, but it was real. And that was enough. When I left that night, I noticed something small. The fridge was clean, the paper with the list was gone. Not erased, absorbed. Back in my apartment, I made tea and sat by the window. The city hummed the way it always did, indifferent and steady. My phone stayed quiet. And for the first time, that didn't mean something was wrong. It meant things were finally right. People ask why I didn't just talk it out sooner, why I let it get so bad. The truth is simple. You can explain boundaries 1,000 times. Some people only understand them when access is gone. Walking away wasn't abandonment. It was clarity. I didn't lose my family. I lost the role that was breaking me. And in doing that, I gave all of us a chance to grow up. So if you're the one everyone leans on, the fixer, the payer, the quiet backbone, here's what I learned the hard way. If your absence causes chaos, it's because your presence was holding up something that was never meant to rest on you alone. Let it wobble, let it adjust, and give yourself permission to finally live your own life. Months had passed since I'd stepped out of the house that had once held my office, my patience, and my energy. In that time, my Queen's studio had transformed from a temporary refuge into a home. I strung a few prints on the wall, planted a couple of succulents, and finally bought a proper lamp that wasn't borrowed or borrowed from my own money. For the first time in years, the furniture, the shelves, the walls, they belonged to me, and only me. I could rearrange, redecorate, or even paint the walls neon green if I wanted, and no one could tell me I was being too dramatic for wanting my own space. Work thrived in that quiet. Without constant interruptions, I completed projects faster, brainstormed freely, and even negotiated higher rates with clients who had previously seen me as just another freelancer. The stress that had once accompanied every notification, every phone call, every email from home, gone, replaced with deadlines I actually wanted to meet, challenges I wanted to solve, and pride in accomplishments that were solely mine. But the real change wasn't just in the walls of my apartment, it was in me. I could finally breathe without calculating who would owe what, who would beg for money next, who would call in a panic when the Wi-Fi went down. Every no I said built a little more strength inside me. Every time I refused to bail out Mom or Ryan, I realized that the world didn't end. My family learned consequences the hard way, yes, but more importantly, they learned limits, and I learned that boundaries weren't walls to keep people out. They were a way to let people grow, even when it was uncomfortable for them. One evening, as I sat at my desk editing a client's website, my phone lit up. I braced for the usual guilt-laden messages. But this time, it wasn't urgent or accusatory. It was a photo from Ryan. A small pile of bills, neatly stacked, a sticky note on top reading, "Paid with my money, Ryan." My chest tightened. It wasn't about the money. It was about recognition, about him finally realizing that he could do it himself, that he had a responsibility beyond scrolling his phone or expecting others to shoulder his world. Mom's texts followed over the next few days, simpler than before. Updates on grocery deliveries, questions about recipes, small conversations about nothing important. No requests for me to fix, pay, or solve. She was learning too, slowly but surely, that life didn't revolve around my account balance or my willingness to pick up the pieces. And I, for the first time, could respond as a daughter, not an accountant or a silent caretaker. The change wasn't perfect. Old habits die slowly. There were moments when Ryan still forgot bills, when Mom's anxiety crept back in, and I had to remind them, gently, that the world doesn't collapse just because I said no. But those reminders were conversations now, not silent sacrifices. They began to respect the line I had drawn, the invisible barrier I had built around my time and energy. It wasn't about punishment, it was about accountability, for all of us. 6 months after moving out, I went back to visit. Walking up the familiar steps, I felt a mixture of nostalgia and relief. The living room was quieter, there were fewer takeout boxes, fewer gadgets lying around, and the office upstairs was now a functional creative space, but not mine anymore. My old ergonomic chair, the one they had sold, was replaced, but that didn't matter. I didn't feel deprived. I felt free. And that freedom came with clarity. They had to manage their own chaos now, and I had no guilt over stepping out of the role that had consumed me for so long. Mom and Ryan were both there when I arrived. Dinner was simple: roasted vegetables, rice, a little chicken. No dramatic complaints about money, no whispered excuses for unpaid bills. Just conversation, actual dialogue. Mom glanced at me during the meal and said quietly, "I think we were scared when you left, but maybe we needed it." Ryan nodded, half smiling. "Yeah, I didn't realize how much you were handling. I'm sorry." I smiled back, a real one this time. "It's okay. I'm glad you're learning." And they were. Mom started tracking her own bills, Ryan got a consistent part-time job and began contributing. He even Venmo'd me for part of the TikTok course I'd paid for, a gesture that said more than any words could. It wasn't about repayment, it was about acknowledgement, about understanding the value of effort and responsibility. As I drove back to Queens that night, my studio apartment waiting for me, I felt lighter than I had in years. The city skyline flashed by, indifferent and constant, and I realized something powerful. My revenge hadn't been mean or cruel. It hadn't been about humiliation or punishment. It was life itself. The simple act of living my life fully, without letting anyone else control it, without sacrificing my health, my sanity, or my peace. I could have stayed, continued to absorb their chaos, continued to silently fund their lives while feeling invisible, but I didn't. I chose boundaries, accountability, and self-respect, and in that choice, I had reclaimed myself. That night, I sat on the floor of my new studio, sipping tea and looking out at the street below. I thought about the months behind me, the frustration, the exhaustion, the moments of quiet despair, and smiled. I had grown, my family had grown, and for the first time we were all learning to survive, not through dependence, but through responsibility and respect. The sun rose the next morning bright and unforgiving, just like life. I pulled my laptop closer, opened a blank canvas, and started designing, not for anyone else, not for a family that had relied on me too much, but for me. And in that creation, in that quiet independence, I found the sweetest kind of revenge. A life fully mine, unshakable and unapologetically free. I realized that some lessons in life aren't about proving yourself to others. They're about proving to yourself that you are worth more than anyone ever treated you like. And once you do, you don't just escape the chaos, you transform it. Because true revenge isn't cruelty. True revenge is reclaiming your life. True revenge is walking away, finally, and thriving.